Welcome back to the channel. Today we are working on the Cayman. Let's see if we can get this thing close to firing it up. Let's go! Welcome back to Fuel by Haters Custom. If you're new, welcome. This is our Porsche Cayman build. So this started as a wrecked Porsche Cayman that, of course, we had to switch things up a bit and put a V8 in it. Why? That's a weird question. Why not? So today, let's dive onto the Porsche, show you the updates, where we are at, what we need to do in order to get to that initial startup. Hopefully, all the parts come in on time so we can get this thing fired up. If not this episode, the next one. Can't wait. So let's just dive on in. Let's go. So again, if you're new, you don't know what this build is, but you've probably seen from the title that yes, indeed, it is a V8 powered Cayman. So we'll do a little recap for those that are new. And for those that are returning, thank you, and just bear with us. We'll get into the nitty-gritty where we are at now and what we need to do in just a few minutes. So this started out as a wrecked Porsche Cayman. When it came in, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. I'll show you the damage. Front fender, a little rippled up. The door's good. The rocker panel is damaged. And the quarter, well, the quarter has seen, well, it's got a little dent. I tried buffing it out, but it didn't seem to want to come out. But anyways, that's the little dent that we have. Then I started making a decision. What do I do with this car? Like, it's a nice car. I like it. But we need to change it up a bit. So instead of buying new bumpers, because they were damaged, of course, I ended up buying a wide body kit. So that's a portion of the wide body kit there. And these are parts for another project we have ongoing. It's a Range Rover Supercharge that will eventually soon get another engine swap. So that's why this junk is all over the place. And that's the engine swap. But we're not going to talk about that project today. So put some wide wheels, obviously, because we kind of need to get some meaty tires on there. And as far as the interior goes, I stripped it all up. And then we get into here. We've got a supercharger. But no, don't worry, this is not going on this car. I wish it was, but then the pulley setup wouldn't work. But we'll see what's under here. Here we have it. We've got an LS. So this is an LS1. It came out of a Corvette, so it's not a super high horsepower engine. It's not an LS7 or anything like that, but this will do for this project. Why did I go with this particular engine? Well, funny you might ask. The reason why I went with this was mainly to keep it cheap. I want to do this project to show you how you, yes you, can do this at home and not have a super $50,000, $100,000 budget. Like, obviously you can pay a shop that, you can pay 20, 30 grand to get it done, but that's not what we're after. We're trying to get it for the do-it-yourselfers at home that want to do this on the cheap side. So we will go over, I'll make a video in the next few episodes, once we get it running and whatnot, on what part we've used to make this happen at a reasonable cost. Obviously, anybody can throw anything together. If they don't have any budget, then yeah, they'll just spend. But that's not what we're after. We're trying to make it ourselves so you can make it at home. So it is an LS1. Eventually, we want to put a cam and all that jazz in it, and possibly two nice little turbos, but we'll see. For now, it's just the point of getting it running, getting her all dialed up, before we move on to the upgrades. Because again, trying to do this on the cheap. So version 1 is the cheapskate build. So it's just trying to make sure that we can get it running, driving with this drivetrain so you can do the same at home. What are we running for transmission? So we know that the engine is an LS1. The transaxle is a stock 5-speed transaxle. So we'll eventually add an LSD, but again, we're going with the budget right now. We've got the axle still in the factory locations, using the factory transmission mounts, and of course we built different engine mounts for the engine there. As far as the top cover goes, I had to bend this in a little bit in order to make clearance, and then we'll talk about what we need to do for the throttle body, intake, yada 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 shortly. So this is the build. So again, wide body, LS powered, Porsche. Whew, she's gonna be fun, hopefully. Manual 5-speed too, so that certainly keeps it interesting. So now we get into today's episode. What is the plan for today's episode? Of course, we want to get this thing done not as quickly as possible, but have everything on there so we can do an initial startup. But this brings us to, what are we going to power this engine with? Well, let's go to this side of the garage and see what we got here. So a few parts came in. Of course, we're still waiting on a few things. But this is the Ollie EFI. So if you've watched our other episodes, you know that I'm a big fan of the Ollie EFI system. We were running always Phytech before, and that didn't work out that well. So we ended up switching all of our cars to this. So I'll give you a little rundown of what you get. So these are the injector clips, which are the injector clips for the LS1. You get the nice wiring harness, relay and everything already bundled. You get your power harness, so this power goes from power to the ECU directly to your battery with a fuse. We've got a wideband sensor, because this is a self-tuning, self-learning ECU. So you get a wideband gauge right there. You got the little LCD display, so it's not the big one, it's just a small one. You get that. You get a few different adapters, the manual, and the ECU itself, which, let me just see. Oh, well, I don't need to open it, but this is what the ECU looks like. So these are really easy to make work, and yeah, it's obviously the best bang for the buck. They are $999 US plus taxes and whatnot. Especially if you're in Canada, you've got a bunch more fees, but really good. Then we've got this thing here, which just came from our local Marshlands Marine by Calvin. It's just basically a fuel filter, so you got your feed and return going to only one. So this makes your regulator all in one. So since we're not going with boost or anything at this point in time, this is the best bang for the buck at like $27. If you need the part number, here it is. This is a Pure Zone. This is the one I use on pretty much everything. I use this or Wix, whichever is available. And then we got this little box. As you can tell, it came with electrical tape on there, so you know it's not necessarily didn't come from a. Just a quick second here. I'll put you on pause and I'll open this up. And finally, I was able to open it. This little box came from Jean. Jean is the other guy you see on the channel who's building the AC Cobra, and also he's got the Rat Rod Ford build going on, and a bunch more to come. But yeah, we cut these on the CNC plasma. Don't know if they look like something you'd recognize, but I'll show you where they go, what they are. Essentially, it goes right here, like this, so we can make our intake going downwards to put our throttle body, which is this bad boy, under here to get to the factory airbox. So that's the plan with this. So what's left to do to get it started? So we got to do the fuel lines, we got to do the AGR caps, which that's easy. It's just a matter of making two little plates, block off plates for the EGR. So we got to do that. We got to do the exhaust system, because right now we are just opened up at the bottom here. And of course we need the coolant, yada, yada, yada. But that stuff, I'm still waiting on a few things like the water pump, a few lines. But I did get these in, which I'll show you in just a few seconds. Here, these are made by Pound Designs. It is for the electric water pump. It gives us a lot of room, so we don't have to run a traditional manual water pump. This is going to be a electrical powered pump that we're just going to tuck in at the bottom there. So yeah, that is where we are at, and that's what we need to do. So what do we do first? So I think we're gonna lift the car and see what we can do as far as the exhaust goes. Right now, this is gonna be the experimental exhaust. I don't know what we're gonna put. There's not a whole lot of room under there, and I kinda don't want it straight piped, but we should possibly do it straight pipe just to do a nice startup. We'll see, we'll see. Let's just dive onto it and let's lift this thing up. Alrighty, so we have it lifted up on the hoist, and as you can tell, stock transaxle, stock mounts, stock axles, everything lined up in the factory location. We still retain the factory skid plate, in which that's going to cause us some problems doing exhaust, but we got to do it, so we'll just get to it. So we've got the headers coming over here, right? And then we need to go down here, up here, underneath the axle, out to here. So we got to do that on both sides. That is the first step. So once we have the exhaust all the way up to here, we'll say, then we'll decide what we do as far as an exhaust, muffler, yada, yada, yada. But the main thing today, to do the initial startup, I just want it, if I can stop it here, I'll be fine. So what are we gonna do? Well, I'm gonna put you on pause and figure it out, because I don't need you, well, I don't think you want to see me just taking little pieces, trying to figure out what bends I need, yada, yada, yada. So once I do this, it should be, hopefully, pretty complete. And whoa, we're back, and look at this. So I told you it was easy as that, right? So we got the exhaust. I got a broken stud here that I gotta fix. Right, so the exhaust goes this way and that way, wraps around everything, and then it comes out of the back. They're not 100% aligned yet. I can still swivel them, so I'll have to do that before I build the rest of it. When it comes to the rest of it, I want to do this piece, but not damaged, in the middle, right? So technically I could just do straight pipe right into it right now, but that'd be loud as could be. So I got to figure out a way that I can still use this here and put some mufflers. Not much room for mufflers. And that is the issue right now. What do I do for mufflers? But while I was doing this, delivery man came and brought in a few more things. So we got this nice turbocharger. I'm just kidding, this is a water pump. So it's an electric water pump. It's all made of metal. It's a pretty nice setup. So that's what's gonna power the coolant. And that's made by Davey Craig. And then we've got this here for a threaded rivet set. That's only going to be used mainly for the inside where I'll do my fiberglass panel, which we'll touch in the next episode. So for now, what do we do at this point? So I think we should just start it up doing it like this, right? And then I'll figure out exhaust, because the mufflers themselves, I'll have to order them. They probably won't have anything in stock around here. So for now, I think that's gonna be, it's gonna be super loud, but yeah, that's what it's gonna be. Now, what do we need to do? Well, I think we gotta jump into the wiring. But before we get to the wiring itself, we kinda gotta figure out the water pump. Or do we? Technically, if we just start it up, don't let it heat up, we don't need the the water pump. Because the water pump, I need to go to a store to get some fittings, get some lines, yada, yada, yada. And as far as the harness goes, well, we got to figure out this portion here before we even do that. And for this, turns out I didn't think, and I did not order any couplers. So right now I made a few calls. I'm hoping that they call me back and we get some couplers. Once we get the couplers, we'll be able to do that. Once we get that done, then we can do the harness. Once we do the harness, we can do the fuel lines. Once we do the fuel lines, we can possibly start it. So let's just, at this point, let's just wait for a call to see if they have a coupler. They're supposed to call me back in like 10-15 minutes. In the meantime, I'll go grab a bite. And if they do have it, I'll run to the store, get that. And then we can do a little more progress so we can hopefully start this as soon as possible. Sooner than later, actually. So, on to a few seconds for you, and then hopefully not an hour for me. But yeah, let's get at it. So, after running around town for what seemed like a full day just to get nowhere, finally, Nick had one at his house. So Nick came clutch with that and gave me this one. So I'll show you what the problem is now. So as you can tell, this is there. And even if I cut it, this will not work. So, what are my options at this point? Oh, a little dirty again. So my options at this point are scrapping the project, we're done, or we do some pie cuts. So that's what I did this morning. And it is 2 days after, because yesterday we got a snowstorm and I didn't really want to go out. And so I cut these nice little pies. So I got 4 of them cut right now and all deburred. Essentially we can make a nice radius. I went with they're 22 degrees just so they make a tight radius, and I did cut them a little different on a few of them for the thickness, just so I can try to get more angle. And I'll show you a little trick on how to do that. And don't mind the garage, it's a mess. But so what you do is you mark the top of your pipe. Now I'm just doing this with a chop saw, nothing fancy. Anybody can do this, even with a sawzall this would work. So you mark your top and exactly the other side there. So you do your first cut like this, you turn it around, do the second cut, and then bam, that's what pops up. Then of course it's all jagged and all not nice, so you gotta use well, there's a bunch of ways that you can use to clean it. I just use a air Dremel and then just clean them up. So yeah, that is how I cut my pies. You can play with the degrees, right? So if you play with the degrees, then it will take more pieces to make the bend, more welding, yada yada yada. But yeah, this is just for now. I want to do it in aluminum. This is just mild steel, just for the tester. But let's go back here, and I'll put you on a stand so you can see a little more. Here we go. So, grab a couple pieces here. So the way we can do it is if we put, let's say, one here, and then we go on with the second one at a slight different angle, just so we can make it clear, right? So by doing it this way, we can play around with the angles. I know you can't really see super well. But what I'll do is I'll tack it together and show you how this would work. So essentially, if you play with this, then your angle changes, right? Not your angle, but the way the pipe is going to turn is going to change. So that is how we're going to play with this to hopefully make it work. So again, I'll put you on, oh, and if I want to make a straight piece, then yeah, this makes a straight piece, but that's kind of counterproductive. So let me do a little bit of tack welding and see if I can get this in a spot that it would work. All right, so after a little bit of work and a few pie cuts, here's what we have. Whoa! I should have put some music instead of making that sound, but yeah. So we've got the intake that goes down and then turns and then goes under here, which we have the throttle body, and then it goes back in the stock airbox. So pretty neat, we got that done. Now we just need to wait for our throttle cable, and I'll have to make a little mount on here, weld it on, and yada yada yada. But not too bad, not too bad. At least we got an intake now. So now that's done. So we got the exhaust where we need it just for the initial startup. We've got the intake on with a throttle body, because we, as you know, we need a throttle body in order to start it. But I think it's time to end this video. Next time we see each other, we'll be working on the fuel system, getting that buttoned up, putting the harness on, extending the harness, because I figure we'll have to extend a bunch of stuff, and then start up. Getting excited. So again, guys, there ain't nothing to it but to do it. As you can see, I had no idea what I was going to do for an intake. Just went out and I did it. Trial and error. It didn't work with the rubber bends or anything like the couplers, and we made it work. Oh, I can't wait to hear this this rumble. Hopefully on the next episode. So again, guys, there ain't nothing to it but to do it. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.